Hello! Well, good morning, my Florida Garden Escape channel. I'm happy to have you guys here. And if you're new here, we are happy to have you. So, today's going to be a little different. We're going to kind of take a little bit of a tour through the greenhouse, see what we got all going on new in here. We're also going to go over what to expect at our stand that is going to be this June 17th between 10 and 3 in the Panacea area, and I'll leave a description of that down in the description as well. But other than our tour of the greenhouse, we're going to talk about something that we definitely need to discuss, and that's called bugs. We all hate them. They will tear apart your crops in a matter of minutes. And the best way, really, to stay protected is by making sure you're using the right stuff and how often you should be using it. So, we're going to dive into all this. So, let's go ahead and get into it. Make sure you got your coffee. Make sure you got your pen and notepad so you can take some notes if you need to. But let's dive in. Oh, and one more thing. If you are not subscribed yet, go ahead and hit that subscribe down below and leave us a like and leave us a comment. And if you haven't hit that bell, go ahead and hit it too so you don't miss out on any new videos. Because we love you and you're freaking amazing and we love having everybody here. But back into it. Alright guys, so the new addition is going to be the orange sun peppers. These are just like your bell peppers, but they are an orange color. We do have the petunias growing big and beautifully. We definitely going to have to kind of spread them out if we can. And then down there is going to be our sweet bell peppers. They are a carnival blend, as it says, but they're much sweeter in taste from what I've been told. Now up here is the zinnias. These guys have been out here for quite some time, but they are doing great. We got our aloe over here that is doing beautiful. I love my aloe. We got our watermelon that we do plan on having at our stand, along with some squash and no, not squash, zucchini. I'm sorry. That is definitely zucchini because squash leaves are lighter. Those leaves right there. So, those are zucchinis. Sorry, my apologies. Then down here we do have cilantro, broccoli, center row here. And then this is going to be the dino kale. Now, I'm a little worried with the dino kale because some people said the dino kale is a little bit thicker than your regular kale. So we'll see. I've heard some good and bad things on it, but it's growing beautifully and it looks beautiful, so I'm not complaining so far. Then over here we do have the morning glories. These guys have been going at our stand for quite some time, and we are more than likely going to do a deal over the blue and over the morning glories again, kind of like we had with our tomato plants. Now, this has been rotated around so many times, it's not even funny. So right here, down this section here, is going to be our habaneros. We do have wildflowers in the mix. There's our basil. This is going to be our spearmint, the only one I was able to get germinated to save my life. That took me freaking 5 months to grow finally. Then in the back we do have our parsley and one of our moon and star watermelons. That moon and star won't go to our stand. I'll actually be putting it in our garden as well. We do have some more blue enchantments, some of our oregano, of course our marigolds. These are going to be more of our African marigolds, as they are a much bigger marigold. We have snapdragons. We got some beautiful 4 o'clocks. And let me tell you guys, at first I thought these are going to be like a vine. So I was like, okay, another vine thing that I've grown that I'm really concerned might not do so well because I'm running out of vine space. But come to find out, these are actually not vines. These are more of like a bush. As these get bigger, they get bushier and taller. So I was really happy to learn that. I really do love the stem of the 4 o'clocks because it's like a vibrant red and a green all mixed together. as you can see here, even on these leaves here, is like a vibrant purple color. You guys see that? That is so freaking pretty to me. We also do have eggplant. This is also going to be participating in our booth event on the 17th, and I'm super excited about that. Down there is some more tomatoes, and this keeps happening. I'll transplant my tomato plants out of their little seedlings, and then come to find out 2 more seeds will germinate that were in there and pop out. So then I end up with not 1 but 3 plants in one thing. So then I have to separate them once I transplant them from that. But whoever gets this guy will get 3 tomato plants in one. So that's going to be exciting for them. Now, our cabbage. Our cabbage looks good. Our cabbage is looking good. They're forming their heads, so they're doing what they're supposed to be doing. They're not quite ready yet, so hopefully they'll be ready soon. As you guys do see here is our basil. But now, let's go ahead and talk pests. We're going to go over a few things with pests. So, a lot of your pests, whether it be tomato worms, it'll be pretty much all your aphids. So with companion planting, you always want to throw some mixes in with your other plants to really throw those pests off. It's one of the reasons why I incorporate my marigolds into my garden, to throw those pests off. Even, for example, cucumbers. Our cucumbers out there, yes, they are trellis, and their blooms throw off a scent to the cucumber beetles. But, key thing, to throw them off that scent, you want to add flowers, some dill. I even threw in a zinnia in there, and it's doing great. It's not taking up a whole lot of nutrients from the cucumbers. The cucumbers are still expanding and blossoming. We actually just gave the cucumbers just yesterday a haircut. So she lost a lot of her leaves, but she's going to get better airflow and going to grow much better, I think. But enough of that. Let's get back to pests. One thing I would definitely recommend using is neem oil. Now you can get the pure neem oil or this neem oil. And what this will do is it'll attack aphids, borers, gypsy moths, spider mites, white flies, powdery mildew, and rust. And this stuff works. But when you use this, you also want to use a eco-friendly dish soap or hand soap that isn't fragrance. It's free and clear. I got this off Amazon. I believe I got 2, and it was like $15. So it wasn't too bad at all. But I would definitely recommend using that. Now you can use the neem oil on everything. And I said everything, okay? Everything. Careful when you spray it on your flowers, because if you spray it on the flower itself, you might not get your pollinators to that flower and they might have a hard time pollinating. So just be careful when you're applying your pesticides. You always got to keep in mind your pollinators. So we're moving on to the next thing. One thing I definitely recommend is this garden insect spray. This is going to be your Monterey garden insect spray. Now this is for like your hornworms, your really pesky worms. It'll even protect your plants. Now this is going to be your caterpillar spray with BT. This stuff works really good as well. It takes care of all those other little spiders and things like that that neem oil doesn't, which works great. Now when you use one, you got to mix these together. Now we'll go through the mixtures and how to mix everything in a later video. I do have a previous video where we've done these mixtures, and I'll find the link to it and put it down in the description below for you guys, so that way you guys can see how to go about mixing it, so that way you get the right measurements for your solution. Now another thing we're gonna kind of discuss is what else can we do to protect our plants. Well, That's a very good question. Other than these two things, which I do definitely recommend, but let's say you have apple trees or a peach tree or a satsuma tree. Well, you're going to spray neem oil all over that big tree? I don't think so. You're going to spray BT and all that on that big tree? No, you're not. What I recommend is going to be this. And I'm going to show you now. Now with Surround WP, it's going to be like a powdery mildew. Not a powdery mildew, but it's going to be like a white powder, not a powdery mildew. Don't think it's mildew. You're putting mildew on your plants. You're not doing that. But it's going to be like a white powder, and it's pretty much like colon clay. Oh, bless me. Oh, so sorry. But the thing... Oh, excuse me, I'm so sorry. It's Surround WP with it being colon clay. You don't want to get the straight pure colon clay. The reason why is colon clay gets really clumped up and it'll stay sticking together as long as you're not, especially if you're not mixing it up constantly. Now, last time I got colon clay, I did just get the straight colon clay itself. Come to find out, it is definitely thick when you mix it, and it'll stay thick down at the bottom where you've added it. But as you're mixing, you have to stay mixing it for it to not clump up. And one thing with the pure straight colon clay is it'll get clumped up in your sprayer and things like that. Unlike your Surround WP, it won't get as much clumped up, and it has those minerals inside to keep it apart, so that way it can run through your sprayer with no problem. Now, with the colon clay, you definitely want to apply it maybe once or maybe twice, depending on how big your sprayer is. I would do, if you're doing a light coat first, I would do one coat and then another coat on another day, on the next day, just to give it that extra coverage. Now, one thing with Surround WP is you can keep it on your fruit. It's not going to harm your fruit. What it's going to do is going to protect your fruit. It's going to put that barrier around that fruit, and any bug that comes on it or tries to eat on it, it's going to pretty much dry up and die, because what that Surround WP is doing is into their system, it's killing them off. And so it's definitely something worth doing. But now let's talk about how often you should apply these. So let's say, we're just going to throw an example out here. So let's say in a week's time you don't get no rain. So let's say you first spray your plants on a Monday. All right, that's good. We don't get no rain all that week. Well, you're going to want to spray your plants again that following Monday. So pesticides sometimes won't last on the plant no longer than a week, sometimes 2 weeks. Now, your neem oil and your BT stuff, that will last on the plants for a week to 2 weeks. What I love doing is, especially if we're going out of town or if we got something going on that weekend and we're going to be gone, I'll go ahead and spray my plants again with the neem oil and that, just to give it that extra hit, to make sure nothing gets on it while we're gone, because I don't want to come home to a demolished tomato plant, for example. Like, nobody wants to do that. So spray every week to 2 weeks. Now with your colon clay, it's going to be, well, not colon clay, but with your Surround WP, there's several different places you can get the Surround WP. You can get it from Seven Springs, which is where I ordered it from, and I'll leave that description down in the description below. You can get it on Amazon. There is tons of places you can get it on, and the prices range from about $40 to about $60. So it's definitely pricey, especially if you're getting the 25-pound bag. But here's the thing. Even though you're spending 40 to 60 bucks on a 25-pound of Surround WP, that bag's going to last you for some time, because you're not going to have to constantly use it. Now, with Surround WP, your application should be very often. So let's say you apply your Surround WP on a Monday. You don't get no rain for that week. That's great. That's awesome. That Surround WP won't need to be applied again on the following week. You don't have to keep applying it every week. Luckily, thankfully, if it rains, well, not thankfully, because if it rains, it's washing that all off. So after every heavy rain, you're going to want to apply that Surround WP again. Like now we have to apply our Surround WP again to our plants because of the heavy rain and that we got last night. And it was like, it was so bad. It was so bad. Oh man, I thought I was going to lose my whole crops because of how heavy the winds and everything were. It was so bad. It was blowing chairs around in our yard. Like, it was just terrible. But now that it's rained, all that heavy rain has washed our Surround WP off. So now we have to go back through and applying these pesticides. But anytime you have rain, you're going to want to reapply the neem oil, your BTs, your Surround WP. You're going to want to reuse those and get those back onto your plants to protect them from those pests that we get. So, with that being said, and also, let's talk about what you can use your Surround WP, because I feel like it's a misconception on what you can use it on. So you can use it on your tomatoes, your fruit trees. I've even used it on my cucumbers and cantaloupe plants as well, and it's kept them protected beautifully. Now, it's not something I will do very often, just because they don't really need that whole protection, as my neem oil really does it for me. And the way our cucumbers have been blossoming, we've been getting harvest off those things like no tomorrow, and I've been pickling the heck out of those things. So, with all that being said, apply your pesticides. Get your neem oil, your BTs, and everything out in that garden to get rid of anything that's eating on your crops. Because, yes, you love them, you love harvesting them, but those pests, they love them too. And they don't care if you want them or not. They greedy, okay? Straight greedy. So, with that being said, make sure you're applying your stuff to your plants so you can keep good, great looking crops. Because one thing for sure that's going to happen, especially with some worms, they'll eat the veins of your leaves and leave nothing but the leaf itself. So it looks like you can see through that leaf. And they will demolish, and they'll come in clusters sometimes. I've found some, like now that it's rained, I want to get neem oil and all that back on my plants so that way I can help keep my crops alive and well. Now, let's go ahead and talk about how you need to go applying them. So, in most cases, you would think you would just apply everything to the top of your leaves. You don't need to worry about anything else, because if it's on the top, it's covered. Incorrect. You need to spray under and on top. Okay? Get under the leaves. Get them real good, because one thing pests like to do is they like to hide under those leaves. Those leaves are considered their protection from the weather, the birds, things like that. So you definitely want to make sure you're spraying under the leaves. Now, with your Surround WP, you want to make sure you get under and on top. Now, even with your neem oil BT, I will still do under and on top, just to give it that extra protection, because there is no harm in making sure your plants are safe from those pests. They are atrocious. But anyways, so just make sure you spray it under and above. Now, with that being said, make sure you apply it after every heavy rain. And make sure you're applying your neem oil and your BTs at least once a week, or when you start to really see the pests get bad. Sometimes it takes them a while to get bad again. Apply it. It'll work. I promise. It'll do you some savory. Anyways, guys. So, that's the pesticides. Now, if you're looking at a more of a way, so let's say you have some powdery mildew going on. I've heard that if you apply cinnamon throughout your grounds, it'll get rid of some of your powdery mildews and things like that. No, I have not tried it yet. I've seen that it's worked, but I haven't fully tried it. I use neem oil for the powdery mildew, and it still kind of does the trick. It's just a slow process. Powdery mildew, you don't want it to spread to all of your plants or to the whole plant, because it'll demolish that plant and it'll ruin the dirt that the plant is in, because that dirt has now become a disease because of the powdery mildew. And the powdery mildew works on the leaves and then works its way into the plant and into the ground. So that's one thing you don't want. Now, if you're seeing powdery mildew on your leaves, just cut the leaves off or spray them down with your neem oil. But if you're cutting the leaves off, make sure you're removing it all together out of the garden, because you don't want that in your garden. You don't want to put it back into your garden's ground, because if you put it back in your garden's ground, guess what's going to happen? It's going to spread to other plants, and other plants are going to start showing that powdery mildew. So any diseases and things like that that are showing on your leaves and that, make sure you discard them. But that's going to be it, guys. We went over a lot. We have went over everything in the greenhouse. We have went over our pesticides, how often you should apply them, all that. But now it's time to go. I have to wake up old man and get kids ready for doctor's appointments. Oh, and don't forget to see us on June 17th between 10 and 3 at the Panacea area. And that, like I said, that description will be down in the description below. Until next time, my Florida Garden Escape growers. Catch you on the flip side. Deuces!